This week's Shoe Shine looks at the new broom at global health IT provider Orion Health, after Brad Porter took over as CEO from his father-in-law and company founder Ian McRae. Fiona, what prompted the change?
Well, Ian McRae, who is the company founder, and the business has been going for 30 years, so he's 63 now. He had a brain tumour and underwent surgery earlier this year and is now in remission. But as he says, he's of an age and at a stage where he's really not got the energy levels to do the sort of job that is, these sort of businesses when you're CEO, it's a 14-hour day, 6-day a week occupation. And he thinks that bringing in Brad is going to bring in some fresh ideas and new energy to the company.
So what's McRae's role going to be now? Is he still involved with the company?
Well, he says he's retired, hadn't we heard, was what he answered to me. But he's got a lot of projects on the go. He's got a lot of hobbies. He's a very keen boating enthusiast. He's currently on a project to electrify his sea legs amphibious boat. It's taken him a while longer than he thought, and he's got a whole lot of other things on the go, but he is going to work part-time in the company. Porter told me that he'd be doing working in the R&D side of things, aligning some of those projects, although McRae did say to me that he thinks it's a bit odd having to ask for projects from the CEO. He's finding that a bit odd.
So what's Porter's background, and do you think he's going to be able to drive the company well?
So Porter was working for Fisher and Paykel Healthcare. He was head of their sort of commercial sales globally. So he had a pretty good job. And I did ask him why he gave up that job to take this on, because it's essentially a family-run business. McRae owns 85% of the company. He's now executive director on the board, alongside his daughter Lucy Porter, who is Brad's wife. She's come back into the company in June to take on a governance role. She used to work for it previously. So Brad's got experience at the commercial sales end, which is really what they need. Global sales is what they need. They've got products and they've got momentum behind them with, since the pandemic, digitisation of healthcare has become a thing. So really they need to capitalise on that. When asked whether why he wanted to get into running a family business, he said he was well aware of it. He's worked with Ian before on, they've got a Waiheke Island Marine Services business, which he's helped him with, and he thinks he'll be able to cope with that dynamic.
Might make for some potentially awkward conversations around the family dinner table sometimes.
I think it's quite hard to avoid those conversations, but understand they do have 4 young children as well, so they've probably got a bit else on their plate as well. He's just doing a global tour this week. Brad said he wanted to meet, they've got 600 or so staff now. He wants to meet a lot of those. He's going all over the world really to their offices and meeting key customers, because he's got the healthcare experience, but he really needs to get really in-depth knowledge of the healthcare solutions to make sure they've got the right solutions in the right place.
How's the company going? Because it had a really rough period where it listed on the stock exchange, had a few years of struggling, and then delisted.
One could argue that Ian McRae was probably the wrong personality to take the company public. I don't think he liked the scrutiny. It was also very difficult when you've got these big, lumpy contracts. When do you disclose them? When do they come through? And of course, they fell foul of sort of Trump overturning a lot of the Obama contracts that in the biggest market, the US. So they really struggled. They had a number of losses. Short story was Ian McRae bought the company back in 2019 and delisted it. They restructured, they halved the staff, and it got quite corporatized. And I think what he says they did was to look at what had worked when they were growing, and it was to be quite entrepreneurial. So they've broken all the divisions of the business into separate divisions run separately, and it's more of an entrepreneurial bent where they all compete with each other. And both he and Brad say that's working well. As a private company, it doesn't have to release its figures, but it did put out a figure in June for the March 2022 financial year, saying it had made 150 million in revenue and 8 million in profit once short-term incentives were taken out, though it didn't state what those incentives were. So it has been profitable for 2 years in a row, and Brad Porter's very confident he can maintain that momentum, if not lift it. McRae says he hopes that he can lift that 12% revenue growth rate to something more like the 20% it enjoyed in its heyday. And certainly with, as I say, the momentum that's going in digitisation of healthcare IT, it's well on the path to hitting that run rate.
There's also going to be a multi-million-dollar spend by Health New Zealand to improve the health sector's IT. How do you think Orion's going to be poised to benefit from that?
Well, it's interesting because on the face of it, you'd think it would be because it already has DHB contracts. It has about around 20% of its revenue in New Zealand, but it did lose out on the on a fairly big contract at the start of the pandemic around recording vaccinations. It was the incumbent, and that Ministry of Health gave that contract to multinationals instead of Orion. Ian McRae was quite outspoken at the time. He's been very critical of government procurement processes. Brad Porter says he wants to really pursue that. He thinks they've got this great technology they're taking to the world. He'd really like to see it in his own backyard. But I did speak to Ian about, his opinion on Health New Zealand, and he said it was all off the record. So I think maybe he may have been told to sort of keep his views quiet while they try and pursue some of that business.
Fiona, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.